Tales of the Dead. The hut was warm and quiet. The kerosene lamp was shining cozily. Grandmother was spinning yarn. Grandchildren. Alyosha and Maximka climbed on the hot stove and silently watched their grandmother's work. Outside the window, it was snowing. The blizzard was howling in the stove chimney and beating against the walls of the house. "Grandma, tell me about the terrible things," asked Alyoshka. "Yes, tell me, Grandma." Maximka, the youngest, chimed in. "All you want is to hear about scary things," said Grandma. "Then you'll be afraid." "Grandma, what's the matter with you?" The boys were indignant. "We're already big." Grandma smiled, looking at the stove with her kind blue eyes. She thought for a moment, and then she leisurely told a story. "I heard it from my grandmother, and it was in her village where she came from. A young girl died there. They buried her properly, and then suddenly, the boys in the village started dying one by one, and they said bad things about that girl, that she was a witch, and she was evil because she died young, and her deeds apparently, she can't rest in the next world, so she comes for more deaths. But it's one thing to say, but no one can prove it. What do we do?" Already 3 guys went to bed and didn't wake up. We decided to keep watch. In the families where the boys were, they took turns guarding the houses, staying up all night. And one of the nights my grandfather was on guard, it was in the Tikhonov's hut. It's quiet all around. Everyone's asleep. Grandpa is pecking his nose. The moon is clear, full, shining through the window, and Grandpa sees a shadow in the moonlight. Someone is looking into the hut. Grandfather got up, took a stick, prepared in advance. Then the door creaked, and the very girl who had been buried entered the hut. She wiggled her nose around the hut, sniffed like a beast, and went to the bench where the grandfather's grandson, Ignat, 20 years old, was sleeping. The witch stood over him, unfolded her shroud, and was just about to throw it over the sleeper when the grandfather jumped up. He swung his stick. The witch flew to the corner, squatted down, and hissed. That's when everyone woke up and became alarmed. The witch ran out into the hay and into the street and disappeared, and her shroud remained lying on the floor. Grandfather picked it up and went to gather people. The whole village was mobilized. It was getting light. It was summer. They went to the cemetery. They opened the grave, and there was a girl lying there without a shroud, completely naked. They realized that she was walking around the village, bringing death to the houses, covering the sleeping man with her shroud, and he never got up again. So they did what they were supposed to do, closed the grave, sprinkled it with sprinkles, and since then everything stopped. But that grandfather died the next day after all. Either his old heart failed, or because he had held the witch's shroud in his hands. That's how it is. "Grandma, tell me another one, please." They dragged out their song, just for last. "Haven't you heard enough? Then you'll be afraid to go to the yard." "We're not afraid. We go to the yard together." "Look, I'll tell you one more and you've had enough. There was a family in one village, husband and wife, and they had no children. Or rather, they had children, but they didn't live long. The husband and wife grieved a lot. But what can you do? I guess it was their fate. And one day, a stranger knocked on their door. He asked to spend the night. An old man, gaunt, leaning on a stick, poorly dressed. "I'm going on a pilgrimage," he said. "I'm coming. Let me in, good people. A thunderstorm is gathering. I won't take up much room. At least I'll lie down in the hayloft. But I'll pray for you at the Trinity Surgis Lavra when I get there." "Come in, grandfather," replied the husband and wife, "and sit down at the table with us." They fed grandfather, and the husband called him to the bath. He said, "It's been a long time since you've had a steam, grandfather. Let me give you a steam and let you warm up on the shelf." So he steamed Grandpa and gave him his shirt. They came home, put him to bed on the stove and lay down on the benches. In the morning, grandfather got up early. He bowed to his hosts and said, "Thank you, children, for respecting my old man. For your kindness, I'll help you too. I know you have no children, but here's the trouble. It's your cradle's fault." The husband and wife were surprised and asked the old man, "What's wrong with the cradle? Did you make it yourself?" "No," the husband nods. "It was my wife's cradle. She was rocked in it. She had been lying on the staircase for years. And when our firstborn child was born, we took it out." "You can't," said the old man. "Keep the cradle in such places. These places are uninhabited, like a barn and a bathhouse. There's all sorts of evil there. And the child is still unbaptized, so he's defenseless against them. And in your cradle, Makosha nursed her children on the veil. That's why your babies are dying now." "Who's Makosha?" "There was a woman in your village who practiced witchcraft, and when she died, her spirit became Makosha. She lives in unsanctified places and harms people." "What should we do?" "Let's throw away that cradle and that's the end of it. Everything will be all right." "No," says the old man. "You can throw away the cradle, but you have to chase Makosha out of the house. Otherwise, she'll kill the child anyway." "How can we chase her away?" "And I'll teach you. When the full moon comes, take this cradle and go into the forest and put a rag doll in the cradle. Makosha will follow. Leave the cradle in the forest and return home. Makosha will realize that it is not her child in the cradle and will run after her. And at this time, let the one who stays at home go around the house and the yard with the icon 3 times and pour salt in 3 circles. The man will pass, but Makosha won't be able to. Call a priest, let him go around the house and the yard with a prayer and sprinkle holy water. Makosha won't come back." The husband and wife thanked the old man. They did everything as he told them to do. When they started to return from the forest, they saw a black, scary old woman in rags. She ran after them, hiding behind the trees, cursing, but she did not dare to come close. A year later, the old man knocked on the door again. He was on his way back from a pilgrimage. And there was joy in the hut. A daughter, Alyanka, was born, strong and pretty, blue-eyed. "That's how it is in the world," said Grandma to Alyosha and Maximka. "And now, let's drink tea and go to bed."